Always a great lunch here. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the second half of DataComms 2025. One of the things that I've got to put a plug in at some point for the awards, haven't I? One of the things that I love about DataComms awards are the stories that come out amongst the entries, and they always make for great stories. I think probably if you think about a good awards entry, I shouldn't have run up those stairs going back up here, it's ridiculous. There's normally some kind of inflection point. There's normally a reason why an organization needs to communicate data or find data. There's a new CEO, there's a change of mission, there's a crisis, there's something that needs to be that needs to be addressed. And then there's a journey, often with a little bit of tension. And then there's the outcome. The data is communicated, or the data is analyzed, or whatever. So there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And we've been kind of sitting around campfires telling stories with a beginning and a middle and an end for millennia. And with the awards, we get great stories. And I'm delighted that our next session is one of those who are on the shortlist tonight. So if you're going to be at the awards, you'll find out how they're going to do. If you're not coming to the awards, keep your fingers crossed for them. It's the story of how AI-driven insights made Clermont the go-to hotel for food lovers. You've probably all seen that because that's what it says in the programme. So let's welcome to the stage Max Kellar, Head of Digital for Clermont Hotel Group, and James Wolman, who is Head of Data Science for Breda.
Hello. Hi everyone, thank you for taking the time to come listen to our talk. We're calling it the anti-TripAdvisor, but before we get into it, just a little bit about myself very quickly. I work for a company called Breda. We're a data and AI consultancy based in London, helping companies mature along the AI maturity curve. I run our data science and innovation team, so we've got a team of analysts, machine learning engineers, data scientists, solution architects, everything you need to create wonderful things. This presentation is not about, we're not against helping travelers, but we are trying to challenge a fundamental about how digital platforms have reshaped how we think about travel. It's very much the same journey a lot of the time. You check TripAdvisor, you visit the same bakeries, you have identical experiences. And that's because a lot of the time, the algorithm is curating the journey. So we're not anti-guidance, but we are anti-algorithm. And I'll just pass it to Max to introduce himself.
Sure. My name is Max. I'm Head of Digital at Clermont Hotel Group. A little bit, I suppose, I run effectively every bit of marketing that's not written down is kind of how I describe my role. So we work with Breda as well as their sort of sister arm Found across our paid ads, and really Breda underpins a lot of what our data science and sort of data-driven activity looks like. Oh, there's always going to be one. So a little bit about ourselves. As a group, we're not necessarily a particularly well-known entity, but you might recognise some of our brands, especially if you are sort of known to London, or frequent visitor of London. We've got the Clermont, 2 railway hotels based in Victoria and Charing Cross. We've got the Thistle brand, which we've recently broken out into the core Thistle, and then 2 by Thistle properties, one at Tower and one at Marble Arch. And then we've got 2 single property brands, Royal Horse Guards, just based in Whitehall, and the Cumberland, formerly Hard Rock Hotel in Marble Arch. So, go on, clicker. Go. Might have to go old-fashioned.
We said we weren't going to do this.
Yeah.
Hang on, this isn't working.
Didn't want to have to say the phrase next slide, please. There we go. So yeah, effectively, the market within London for pretty much everything, but particularly hotels, due to my slight bias, is incredibly saturated. And when you are within that market, it's all about your USPs, about how you differentiate yourself from the competition. This on the right, it sort of perfectly displays what we are as a group. We are not necessarily, we don't have spas, we don't have kind of lovely cinema screens like this. We don't have F&B venues that are necessarily walk off the high street famous. What we are is an incredibly location-led group. Those orangey red dots are our estate, and those blue dots are the 36 most popular tourist attractions within London. So we are perfectly situated for location-led travellers. But obviously, as a result of that, you have to use that location and your surroundings to your benefit. And really, location is so key to what we do. It allows us to differentiate ourselves from the market. It allows us to have a wide offering while still focusing very much on London. But it's not just about the Madame Tussauds, and I will pick on Madame Tussauds quite a lot in this, just because I'm not a fan. It's not just about coming to London and doing the Madame Tussauds and the London Eye. A lot of travellers now are looking for a little bit extra, and it's data has been how we've helped to underpin how they find that. Now, this does sound like I'm picking on some competitors. So in a content-driven market, differentiation is key, particularly within your content. So all of these are prime examples of very nice-looking bedrooms from some of our competitors. I would have got killed if I put any of ours on here. But one thing we've realised in creating content strategies we now are doing for FY26 is if you're just focusing on what's inside your hotel, you run dry pretty quickly. There's only so many ways you can shoot a bedroom, and unless you've got some fabulous gimmick to that bedroom, then there really is going to be 3 or 4 posts from that, and then you're going to run dry pretty quickly. So unless you've got, amazing extra facilities within your hotel, you do have to look out the window. Sometimes literally with regards to the Tower Hotel, the best view in London, I still find. And also what's around you and how you can benefit mutually off the location and the I suppose the utilities around you. So this is just a little kind of snapshot into what we were finding. These are 2 quotes from the Hilton Travel Trends Report from 2025. 15 wouldn't be very useful. That 1 in 5 will travel specifically to seek out new restaurants or culinary experiences. That's becoming incredibly important to travellers. What we're seeing is it's not necessarily just Gen Z, as people seem to believe. The sort of common misconception is, oh, well, it's Gen Z. They're going to go and they're going to look it up on TikTok and they're going to go and find a lovely, great ramen place, and that's why they're going to London. It's not necessarily true. That goes for all demographics. That is fairly consistent across every age range. And what we've seen, particularly in the last 3 or 4 years, is travellers are seeking authentic food experiences, driven by a desire for deeper cultural immersion. They don't want to come to London and visit Wagamama's. They don't want to come to London and go to somewhere that they could go to at home. And there's probably an illustration of that here. Again, not picking on the Breakfast Club. They do a lovely breakfast. But viral does mean popular, but not necessarily authentic. So I'm sure there's a lot of people in here who have had that experience of finding somewhere to eat when you're on holiday. You think that looks great. All of the visual aid of social media is so key to that journey, finding things that you want to go and visit. You put it on your list. You say, right, we won't have breakfast at the hotel. We'll head out there. We'll have breakfast there. You get there at 10:30 and there's a queue of 50 people outside. And normally, if you're like me, you think, oh, just go somewhere else. That is symptomatic of places that are viral. If you are viral, you've already won from a business perspective. You've become popular. You've become popular by different means. A lot of people are considering it very underground. It's not. It's becoming extremely mainstream popular. If you have become popular on TikTok, that's mainstream. That means you will have queues for days. But some people, when they travel, particularly within cities like London, your kind of city break cities, are looking for something a little bit more deeper meaning, with a little bit more off the beaten track, should we say. I'll stop picking on Breakfast Club now and hand over to James.
I've never been to Madame Tussauds. I don't think I will.
Don't worry. Just Google the celebrities. And then it's like that.
More. It's the same.
Yeah.
So the fundamental insight we're really trying to find out throughout this work, it's not about food, it's not about hotels, it's more about who can or what controls the narrative to the city. So London, is it the algorithm, or could it potentially be something a bit more authentic? So to find this parallel, we needed to look at the data a little bit differently, and that's kind of what we're best at Breda. And we like to look into what we call the digital whispers, so the network of conversations happening online, to plug into the conversation. We do it differently, and we take a shift into how social data analysis is normally done by companies. Typical tools will look at volume metrics, things like follower count, number of shares, number of likes, for example. So if I set the scene for you, there's millions of people doom scrolling on TikTok, on Reels, seeing the same viral food content. But where we became obsessed is in the negative space of social media. So it's the part that you don't often see much of, and definitely the part you don't see any kind of analysis around. So the question was, how can we separate the loud and the viral content from the more meaningful convos that were happening below the surface? Has anyone seen a viral restaurant on TikTok and then gone to visit it, only to be quite disappointed? Yeah. I can see 1 to 2 nods and a hand raise and another hand raise. Yeah, that's happened to me too. And it's also ruined a couple of my local hidden gems. Prices went 50p up. It's not a lot, but it matters. So we took a different approach. Instead of prioritizing reach, what we really wanted to look at was resonance. It's much more difficult to measure, but it's a lot more meaningful. It can give you a lot better insight. So we go from left to right. Forget about what's trending. What really matters is those patterns in the low amplitude signals. So the experiences that are generating a deeper engagement. Those small, passionate communities where there's knowledge and engagement versus those with a massive but relatively shallow following. Anyone commenting on Nando's. And then you look at the engagement intensity rather than those volume metrics. So things there, sentiment, depth, emotion. When we think of sentiment, we typically think of positive or negative, but it's much richer than that. We've done work recently for Channel 4 on a documentary around nepotism. One of the things we found very difficult was decoding that British wit, saying something but actually meaning the opposite, and it's something computer algorithms struggle with a lot. And then there's that conversational depth, and which is what we call the negative space analysis. So if you're scrolling and scrolling, what about all those comments and all those conversations that are buried underneath that content? What isn't being amplified by the algorithms, but is generating something authentic? And in doing this way, we're able to find those places with maybe less than 100 authentic mentions, but much better than those with thousands of superficial ones. So we knew that there's a view of London that most tourists are seeing, and then there's a parallel view that also exists that's not as accessible. So our unique take on this is in our approach to collecting and measuring it. So we have a methodology. I'm going to guess you probably didn't come here for the details on the methodology, so I will keep it light on the slide. But we call it resonance mapping, and it's a way of tracking what reverberates across cultural spaces. It can even go beyond social media. It's not just about tracking mentions, but it's tracking emotional impact and authenticity. I know I've said that a lot. But we start with, where do we find that data? Who's talking about these places? Who's engaging with it? If we can't plug into these communities online or know where they are, then it's kind of a hopeless task to begin with. And believe me, we tried many different ways to start this journey off, and I can tell you 99 ways that you can't do this. We look at the interactions, yes, as a filtering, but then we go deeper into the content. Leveraging our capabilities in data science that not only understand what the text is, what the comments are, but what the emojis mean, what the videos are saying, and what the pictures mean to people, and how that landscapes. Now, that's all well and good, but that just stands apart as a separate analysis. The way we map it onto Clermont Hotel Group is through smart geolocation, so understanding where these comments were happening in the real world, mapping them onto the hotel space. So then each hotel becomes a center point for lots of authentic experiences around it. Hotspot ranking, we found the hidden gems, and eventually, with all this information, we can target a lot more smartly.
Okay, so I suppose a little bit more from a hotel commercial perspective. This is sort of the life cycle, if you will, from from the very start to the very finish that we would potentially interact with a guest, or how a guest interacts when looking to book a hotel. We've got the first two phases, dream phase and research phase. Dream phase is often, more often than not, you are not looking for a hotel, you are not looking for a stay, you don't know you're going on holiday, you've not booked the annual leave dates. It's just people will follow certain pages at certain times, or they might see something pop up, and I'm sure a lot of people have it at the moment, where you might add something to a list, we might save something, you might send it to someone. That one's a very key one, sending it to someone else. That's one of the main factors that we've seen grow in the last couple of years, is someone saving and very personally interacting with someone. As James mentioned, not just looking at the engagements, but what those represent and how someone's engaging with content. Research phase is when someone starts being a little bit more active. They might start saving something onto a list again. They might start putting things into a particular folder to say, oh, this is my London list, this is my foodie list. And that's a key part of this. Our content might not be part of a list related to hotels. Our content may well be part of a list related to places to eat, places to drink, bars with a view, that sort of thing. And that for us is another way in when you're in a market that's dominated by online OTAs, as we call them, online travel agents, and the big name brands. You've got to find another way into that traffic and that sort of market. Into the booking phase and pre-arrival phase. The booking phase is very much where the website takes over, and you want your own platforms to be pushing and promoting the message that you've been delivering on those sort of engagement platforms. If you're talking about being the best place for foodies in London, you have to make sure your website backs that up. You have to make sure when someone signs up to your emails that backs that up. The pre-arrival phase, when someone has that booking, how do you prepare them? How do you go a little bit beyond just, this is your booking, we look forward to seeing you in 7 days? How can you give them a little bit more, some more of a taste of what they might have to come, how they create their itinerary for their stay? Everyone gets to that sort of 7 or 10 days out and thinks, well, where are we going to eat when we get there? What are we going to do? Let's start really investigating. And the guest experience is one of the ones that we've really signposted, because it's easy to say, I'll reject that phone call. It's easy to say the dream phase and research phase, you push a lot on social media and you try and go for people who are exploring. But we have so much opportunity within the guest experience once someone's on the property. For example, once you're in the room, you switch the TV on and try and have a look. Normally, if you're weird like me, you want to see what the news sounds like in a different language. That sounds quite fun. But you look at your TV. We've got so much technology on our televisions now to push certain engagements, push certain activations. So why can't we put someone's guide to London on their TV? And then post-stay phase. We really, for London, and generally the big major cities in Europe, you'll see a very small amount of repeat guests generally across the market, because it's an experiential trip. So how can you try and drive that needle a little bit and push to someone to want to come back, show that there is so much more to London than you've just seen there. We've got 100 more hidden gems for you to try if you want to engage with us and be part of that user life cycle. And then, as James mentioned, how the numbers correlate. So this is the number of sends of shares and saves that we see on social media by month. So that just goes to represent not just how much of a better job our content's doing and how much this shift is working in terms of getting our content out there, but you could look at our engagement numbers and say, well, yeah, they're up, they're trending up, it looks like a positive journey. But when you dig deeper into what metrics and what those mean, that's when you get more of a story and you see, well, not just are you getting more engagement, people are engaging and interacting more with intent. There's an intent behind it. It's not just someone liking it and flipping over and continuing on their journey or watching it twice because they found it funny. People are engaging with it with an intent to do something else. They're sharing it to their other half, their friend. They're sending it over there. They're saving it to a list marked London City Break or places to eat. And that for us means that we're not just showing engaging content, it's content that resonates. Go on, clicker.
It's cool, I got it.
Go on.
Yeah, because I remember a post you had ages ago. I think you caught Jeff Goldblum. And it was such good performance because it was Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
And the goal is really to take something like this and what if you can get that level of engagement but have that authentic connection rather than relying on cool celebs. So one thing I wanted to show you is how we work together a little bit. You know, what is it that we produce that they can then run with? And a lot of it was really boring tables and charts and PowerPoints that really could have used a designer. So what I made was a very quick animation. I'll just let it play. Surfaces a few of the hidden gems. Essentially, it allows you to see the unseen and reveal the patterns of authentic experiences happening around the hotels. In preparing for this, I didn't have time to put the thousands or the hundreds that we had on there, just a select few. But it gives you a sense of, okay, we've produced this, we can reveal it, and that data is something that it was in plain sight before, but nobody connected the dots, and nobody had access to it. But I want to take a step back, just out of the hotel industry for a second, unless you're all in the hotel industry, I'm not sure. Because this is applicable to anyone who's seeking the authentic in a world that seems quite manufactured a lot of the time. For retail, for example, if independent boutiques with very curated selections and local values, they resonate a lot better than mass appealing huge chains, as well as they do. Healthcare providers that can generate a much more genuine patient experience and can really, versus those with big marketing budgets, they value experience over convenience. And I know that we've worked with clients like that in the past to really upgrade that patient journey. And it goes a long way to generating those word-of-mouth recommendations. And when I say healthcare, I'm not talking about like the doctors, any other kind of medical or cosmetic thing. And then technology as well is a huge one. Just being able to identify those emerging behaviors in technology adoption. That's why TikTok was so successful, because they figured out there was a gap for short-form content. And because they found that hidden insight within the quantitative data, they were able to create a strategy from it. I also wanted to share a few insights that came out of the work as well. Things that, again, are quite universally applicable, that we learned that were very interesting, that I think go a long way. First one is this sort of paradox of discovery. So hidden gems, they lie between what's easily found, but what's not so inaccessible. And the U-shaped curve sort of shows you the balance between the too obvious and the too obscure. You can't go too extreme in either direction. The sweet spot is where that value is really maximized. These will be opportunities that require a little bit of effort to unearth, but they're the ones that will give the most value. And for Clermont, it's those foodie destinations, the ones that aren't on the typical itineraries, but give a sense of that insider knowledge and can help position Clermont as a local, authentic voice.
And just to butt in there, the thing for us really is, we have hotels with food and beverage outlets, we have hotels with bars, but we're not stupid, and we know that people come to London generally to leave their suitcase in a room and head out and explore. So if we were to ignore that and constantly push, come down to the restaurant for lunch, come down to the bar for dinner, we're not going to get that business. And what you're going to do is show that you're very, very much isolated within that city. So what we want to do is be able to connect ourselves. Of course, we are always going to, where we have a commercial opportunity, to drive footfall into our F&B outlets. But generally speaking, what we want to do is show we're not trying to drive people to these food and beverage outlets. We are showing how connected we are with them and showing how good our knowledge of the area is by highlighting them, and that kind of continual balance, that continual sort of cycle of they engage with them, we get that mutual engagement, they then share the content back to us, that is really where we start to see it be mutually beneficial.
And something we focused on more recently was the social good side of it as well, because a lot of these hidden gems are local businesses. If we're, Clermont can do a lot of work to prop them up as well at the same time.
Yeah.
And finding the sweet spot very difficult. We went through many iterations before we had a formula that could yield a hidden gem, not ones that kept surfacing Burger King or, one we were really arguing over was Donatelier.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a hidden gem.
That was, I think, bad luck that we found it at the time. It was growing very rapidly. So by the time it got through several hands our side before I joined the business, it had gone from I think you found it on 18K followers, and I think it had gone to 200 by the time the piece of work was reviewed. Yeah. So that was, I think, bad luck more than anything.
Well, it just shows how quickly you have to react to those things. If you just let it slide, they go away. Now, I can't remember if this is a principle that exists or one that I've made up, but I call it the intimacy gradient.
Say it with confidence.
The intimacy gradient.
It's yours.
Yeah, it's mine now. It's essentially cultural significance intensifies the more you move from mass appeal to something more personalized. Complex way of saying the more you can connect with people personally, the better that's going to resonate. Large viral food destinations like the Breakfast Club that Max talked about, they can reach thousands, but they create the same experience for everybody. And that same principle is true of guests as well. If mass market hotel experience, everyone has the exact same experience. And then here we have the really crucial psychological pattern that came out of it. Something that can have really significant implications for the Clermont and how they're able to build these deeper relationships with customers. If you reveal one authentic thing to people and they go with it and they like it, then suddenly they believe you about the next thing. And that trust can transfer to the next recommendation, or it can transfer to marketing or anything else, any other interaction you have with the customer. And it's particularly valuable where we live in an age of skepticism. Well, some of us, where consumers are increasingly resistant to traditional marketing methods. They're looking to be spoken to rather than at a lot of the time. But what this culminates in is a more sort of universal principle. Again, goes beyond hotels. In every industry, there is this invisible layer of something hiding beneath that surface narrative, just waiting for the right data lens to bring it into a bit of focus, which is what we do. The reason it exists is because every industry, they develop this conventional wisdom about what matters to them. It's the dominant metrics or best practices and these established ways of doing things, but they're focusing on what's measurable rather than what's meaningful, and really reducing it to the average customer rather than the individual. And then they end up optimizing to that. What happens is you get a sense of collective blindness, where those dimensions go unexplored, and you don't know what lies between, and you look like everybody else. So when you can analyze that negative space online, that's where you can sense those more qualitative signals from more quantitative data, bring those unlikely sources together for something competitive.
Yeah, so just to, I suppose, give you a bit of an idea, this is kind of how we see things then come to action, not just because of a way someone interacts with you from an F&B or outlet perspective, but how they then connect with the property once they feel that they've got a relationship with the brand and the hotel. These are people that are tagging us in sort of dream experiences, and I had the most incredible experience at X, and it's, we become a real part of that story when people feel like we have been at the center of the experience. The quote that James put on there, I can't actually brag, that was not mine. Memories people share aren't about thread count or room size. I guarantee you've all got holidays that you've been on that are incredibly memorable to you. They are not memorable because of what happened in the hotel. They're memorable because of the experience, but I guarantee you remember where you stayed because it's associated with that dream trip. And that is what we're trying to do with this. We're trying to associate ourselves with people's dream experiences and dream trips, and becoming an integral part of that, not just from the planning phase all the way through. And when they come back, they remember the great holiday they had, and we are a facilitator of that. And this has kind of shaped the content as we move forward. This is all fairly recent content that we've published, where we start to become more of an advisor to London. You know, as I said before, you post bedroom pictures, you run out pretty quickly, probably within a week in my experience. We then become sort of the guide to London. And this is stuff that gets saved and shared so much more than anything else we put out, because it might not just be people liking it, it's people thinking, oh, a 3-day London guide, I'll save that. Might come to London in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months. That'll be handy to have. It's also benefiting off something that's really booming at the moment, employer-generated content. We all know user-generated content is it has been taking off for years. We're now seeing a lot more about take a look behind the scenes. How do your staff talk? And the concierge is a God's gift to hotel content. Those people know everything about everything, and they are so used to talking to people. They have no problem talking to a camera for, you probably got to tell them to shut up at some point, but they are an absolute fountain of knowledge, and that's really shaped the type of content we put out. And this is representative of the extent to which it's a multi-channel approach. Really, it's not just social media. We publish blogs to purely targeted on getting SEO traffic. It's like I said earlier, you have to make sure your website reflects the story you've been telling to people before they get there. It's how you connect with people on email. Your paid ads should then be able to really benefit off the social media content you've got. Your influencer deals, don't just be sending people to the most viral place in London. Send them to somewhere that you can really help unearth and really grow with them. And the PR as well. One of the things that underpins this is really where we see partnerships going in the next few years, where we'd all love to be able to have brand deals with Nike or Adidas and be in that position. But when you're a smaller brand like we are, really the most beneficial thing you can do in terms of partnership marketing trends is to partner with smaller businesses and grow with them. It develops a more enriching experience, and what it does is it makes your content more believable. We're not just taking a buck off Adidas to promote this pair of trainers because it's London Marathon season and we want to sell some hotel rooms. We're growing with this independent business, and we've started to see it more and more. And you can then, once something is on your feed or your content 3 or 4 or 5 times, people start to become more engaging with it. And there is less skepticism, as James mentioned, about, well, are they just doing this for the money? Are they just taking a quick pound note?
Just to round things off, I think the main theme and takeaway from this is that it's all about discovery, and discovery is kind of the ultimate luxury you can offer. We're saturated with information. Some people even go as far to believe as we've already discovered everything worth knowing, and everything worth knowing has been catalogued and rated and reviewed, and it's just there on Google waiting for you. But I think what we uncovered through working together is the ability to discover something authentic that isn't already filtered through the algorithm itself. There is more out there, and it can be a profound differentiator. And I think at this point, it's not a nice to have. It's almost one of the only ways you can set yourself apart. And what you said, Max, was right. The memories shared aren't about thread count, like this duvet was super soft. Maybe if the mattress was super uncomfortable, that's shared. But otherwise, it's...
Memories of a hotel normally are the negative ones.
Yeah.
When people review you the day after, it's normally negative.
Exactly. I think of when the landlord's mother came and knocked on my door asking me to pay for the hotel room. It was just very strange. Didn't know what was happening.
Not at one of our hotels.
It didn't happen at the Clermont. No, it was in another country. But yeah, the memories are when something unexpected and authentic happens, and that's fueled by discovery. And that's something that's true in every industry. Everything can seem very known and very commoditized, and we can feel a little anti-capitalist or very anti-capitalist, depending on my mood, I suppose. But businesses that can create those moments of genuine discovery you can create something with disproportionate value by creating a story that's worth telling. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Yeah, a couple of questions here. Again, if we can say who we are and the organisation we're with.
Thank you. Really interesting. I'm Sam Knowles, Insight Agents. I'm interested. I really liked your chart with the 6 touch points from dreaming to post-event comms.
Yep.
I'm thinking, I mean, not just from an N of 1, but thinking about hotels that communicate with me and my family and friends afterwards. How do you avoid picking up the negative emotions that come after a very happy and successful trip has taken place? Because once that's over, then you're going down into a different emotional space. How do you avoid being seen just to be selling or reselling because you want them to come back next time? And kind of related to that, when do offers about the next time you visit start to kick in?
I think from our perspective, social media is the key platform for that, because social media I've always described as the fun bit of what I do. That's the platform where you can be creative and can be fun and can make stuff that's just visibly incredible. Well, once you get to the website, we've got to sell to you. We are aiming to convert you at the highest possible efficiency. It's really, for me, about using the platforms for what they're designed for and making sure that you don't have a strategy across everything that's just copied and pasted. Social media, yeah, we can. We're not immune to a bit of negative sentiment on social media. We have a very, very good social media team who are very hot on picking things up and making sure that we deal with them as quickly as possible. The main thing for us is, if you're selling, make sure it's on a platform that's designed to sell. We don't directly sell to anyone on social media. What we do is present experiences and present amazing content that will make you want to be connected to our brand. I have had this conversation many times to try, because some people like to see revenue come from everywhere, regardless of how direct or indirect. But really, social media is about widening the funnel and getting people engaged at a brand level. I used to work for a bar company prior to this, and my MO on social media for that particular business was, I don't mind if people don't actually know that we're a bar to start off with. We're not trying to drive footfall immediately. We're trying to drive connection to the brand, get people to engage with us and get them in that way. It's really about using the channel for what it's there for, and not seeing every user as exactly the same. I hope that answered.
Okay, there's another question, I think, somewhere. Was it? Hold up.
You're going to throw it.
Hi, I very much appreciate your big idea presentation. I'm going to bring you slightly back into the weeds, so I apologise.
No worries.
The idea of this intent data, your save to lists and your shares, is where do you get that from, basically? Because obviously you've got your own channels, but can you get that from sort of other areas, third parties, online travel agents, that kind of thing?
Sorry, in terms of the slide that I put up was just social media. So it was just the Instagram. Really, that's kind of, I suppose it speaks to that previous point about making sure we know the role of it. We never lose sight of the fact that, we are trying to drive revenue. We are trying to sell hotel rooms, but social media can help in widening that funnel and helping to increase the eyes on it. We don't directly control what happens on the OTAs, your booking.coms, etc. But it's, there is, as you said, no point doing this across one channel. We have to make sure it's uniform across everything we do. We have to make sure if we're talking about being the best located hotel group in London, then it has to be across email, it has to be across website, and the OTAs as well. We have to make sure that that's what we're marketing on, that we are positioning ourselves highly for hotels in London, pulling every lever we can. But yeah, it's really, I suppose social media is the one that's easiest to follow, is easiest to track. It's the most fun as well, I can say. There's not as much interest in website conversion rates, but yeah, it's really about controlling looking a little bit deeper into the data and not just reporting on engagement rates for the whole year round on social media, because you get quite bored and you find people don't reply to your emails, in my experience.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we're going to have to call a break there, but it was a great session. You're going to be still around during the coffee break and at the end. If you've got any more questions, we can ask them then. Thank you very much, James, Max. Fantastic session.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, wonderful. Now, last chance to do a bit of work yourself. We are going to head downstairs. We're actually going to merge the coffee break and the roundtable discussion together. So go and grab your coffee, grab your pastry. We're going to sit down and be the last chance to tackle these topics here. Have a little look, see which table you want to be on. They're probably not going to be combined. They're probably not going to be separate ones on 3 and 6. It'll just be on the first number you see. So table 1 there, the power of hyper-personalization. Table 4, building transparency and trust in data storytelling. Table 3, reaching dispersed teams. And table 2, what is good data? So we're going to go downstairs, discuss those. We'll be back here in half an hour for the last part of the conference with some fantastic speakers in the last part after those last 2 roundtable discussions.